episode 6.
Yes.
Episode 6, man.
I thought you were going somewhere with that.
I thought somebody's gonna take over. I thought they're gonna be like episode 6 and somebody's gonna be officially casually.
Oh, visually casually. I thought it. You know, whenever I see 6, I just think about like
Sex?
the number of the devil,
Okay.
like 666.
Nah.
Like it's my upbringing in Catholic country, I suppose. But
Are you guys
every time.
okay? Are you guys? You know, this is also like a sensible topic. Are you guys religious?
Not me.
Or would you, Rafa?
No, I don't. Not really, or at least I maybe I wouldn't say like religious. Maybe like in the traditional sense. But I don't know. I feel like I believe in so many things that maybe I am religious, but then I don't know.
Yeah,
You know?
I think I know what you mean. I also had to think about that hard about it because I'm like, hey man, I don't believe like in the like as you said in the traditional sense, like you know the God that the Bible praises or the Quran or whoever, or like the million of gods. But at the same time, I believe like in a higher energy something, because man, you know how life sometimes just goes and you're like, man, there must be something who's like leading you a little bit. And so basically I came to the conclusion I believe in a God which I don't know. So it's like but I don't want to call it God or something. It's more like in the universe. I would say like I like to say like I believe in the universe.
Yeah, the universe works. I think the other part of it is that there's so much cool stuff on like all kinds of religion that it's hard like after you like openly or I guess
Pick
honestly
one.
like yeah exactly. It's hard to pick one after you like honestly at least like delve a little bit into all of them because they all just have just like this like the most interesting and like weirdest stories. You know?
Yeah, and I have to admit, man, I fucking love the stories, man. I love the stories, man. The stories are sometimes so epic and like so fucking bloody, and you know, when we talked about for people who don't know it, like can you, Rafa, can you quickly tell us about like the telenovela?
Yeah, so there's a telenovela, or I guess like soap opera. It's like what they're called in English. But anyway, the telenovela called Jesus, which is Jesus. It's I'm pretty sure it comes from Brazil, but it is like it has the most like sick intro I have ever seen in a telenovela. Like they went all out, and I've you know we've had them all our lives in Puerto Rico, but damn that was like by far the best. And so I sent it to these guys, and then like Darko also found like one of the scenes where Jesus is like taking this devil out of this guy by yelling at the guy and all these things, and we were like, damn, you know, this would be such a good like show on the veins of Game of Thrones, because there's so many just in Jesus' story there's so many things in which you can go like full Game of Thrones, but then if you take the whole Bible, you know, that would be like way like miles beyond Game of Thrones. You know, there's so much intricacy and so much like blood and violence and you know all these things happening that you know would definitely make hell of a show.
I mean, apparently it is making a hell of a show. I wonder how well that show is doing in Brazil. You know. Because it looks like production values look nice, and the intro, like you said, it echoes Game of Thrones in a lot of ways, and that can be easy.
I love the intro, man. The intro
for sure.
fucked me up, man. Like for people who are interested in intro, I'm gonna provide the link to the YouTube thing. But if you want to search for it, it's like basically Jesus, right? Just like Jesus telenovela.
I think if you just put
Portuguese show.
Yeah, exactly. If you do that, or maybe like Portuguese telenovela or something like that.
And I showed this intro to a couple of people, and man, like everyone is like fucking blown away, man. They're like, "What the fuck?" Like, what the fuck, you know? And then when we talked about like that the Bible provides like the fucking best source material for like a show, because if you think about it, you know, not just like the violence or all the thing, man, the Bible, man. it's a collection of stories like it's not written by one person, right? It's written by so many people over such a long fucking time. And think about this: the Bible is now like how old? 2,000 years, something like that. I guess.
Who knows?
Like no,
knows?
but
Yeah.
I think something like that, right? Or 1,000, whatever. Like super fucking old. There's basically no other book like a story book, like a fantasy book, that survived for such a long fucking time. And then you ask yourself the question, how did it survive for such a long time, and why these particular stories? You know, so then they have something. These stories have something that, you know, like that catches people's imagination and interests, man, and, you know, sense of how to call it, interpretation. So yeah, the Bible, man, fuck, somebody definitely should buy the rights to the Bible. And
You know, that's interesting what you brought there, that the book survived all this time, and I wonder if religion out of the Bible just came by the fact that people kept passing on this book, that everybody said like, well, there must be something in this book if it's still alive after 1,000 years, you know, or after any amount of time. Like maybe the fact that it survived is what makes it so holy instead of actually being holy, because it could it's like saying like Shakespeare, you know, we have Shakespeare, and maybe in 2,000 years we still have Shakespeare and a bunch of things happening there if it's still around. Then everybody looks to Shakespeare like some kind of prophecy or something. I don't know.
Right. But
I feel like it's so interesting because man, if we had access to like proper time travel where we could like actually see that, you know, I feel like so much of history would have such a comical
for
like
sure,
like start, because who knows, like going on that same vein, who knows, someone just walked into somewhere trolling and being like, yo, I got this book from God, and then that just started everything, you know, that before that person no one even read the book, and then the dude was like, shit, I need to like sell this book. What do I need to sell? What do I need to say? Oh, God like made this book, or God was part of the creation of this book, you know, and then now we're here.
Basically a marketer just created
and it went viral.
An ad.
It went viral. Yeah, it was like okay, I like your book, I like this big ass book you wrote right here, but what if we, instead of saying Jose wrote it, what if we say God wrote it? How does that sound to you? And the rest is history.
Like a publisher?
Yes.
Like, fuck yeah, like,
and the rest is history.
yeah. Like, I don't know, man. I cannot call myself God. Like, no, that's your pen name, man. It's a pen name.
If you capitalize it, no one. It's gonna be yours. It's gonna be like a first name.
Fuck. Fuck, man.
It just happened like that.
Yeah.
Like they just gave it a little spin. Instead of saying like random person wrote it, just like God wrote it. How does that? And then the rest, you know, here we are now, 2,000 years
but
later.
Again, like it's very, very interesting that this particular stories, you know, this collection of stories survives, because I think the oldest story that's you know, that we have like written down is like the one from Gilgamesh. Right, I think it's like 6,000-7,000 years old or something like that, or 5,000. Mesopotamia. I don't know, like 5,000-7,000 years. Like the oldest story that people could find, like on stone plates, in the story of Gilgamesh. Are you guys?
I don't know that story.
I'm not familiar with it, but
Gilgamesh,
I've heard the name.
Like fuck, man.
I've not
like
read it,
Gilgamesh was like I hope I'm not quoting it wrong, but like he was like a king, like in the past, and he went out. So he had a best friend who was more like a beast, and he was like a beautiful king. And both of them were really, really strong. And then they, in the first part, they encounter each other in the city. And so Gilgamesh was also like, like a half god, like a demigod, And so they encounter each other in the city, and then they have like a fight, and like this beast person, who became later like his best friend, was like the only one who could actually stand on his level. And then I'm not sure how the story went on. I think his beast friend, so he was a human but more like a beast. He then died, and Gilgamesh went on a pilgrim to find like something that could revive him from the dead. And it's like I hope I'm not butchering the story, man. I think it went like this, but like it's a super old story, man. And yeah,
Gilgamesh is such a badass.
right,
name.
right, man. I want to
Damn, what a good start.
right,
Yeah.
and like the story is actually really cool. I started reading it, but I never finished it, man. Like there was like there's like because there's like a lot of stone plates, and some of them are like fucked up, so that to kind of guess what's gonna come next, and it's so like it's not really like fluent in the story, because the part's missing, and you really don't know what's gone. But here again, this is one story that survived a huge long amount of time, right?
Yeah.
But the Bible again is a collection of stories. So that's like
And who knows what stories didn't even make it?
right, like the first draft.
There's so much of those characters. Yeah.
Like who knows, man? Who knows, right? Yeah, man.
I was just the other day. A friend of mine was telling me this story about. I don't remember the full story, but essentially it was this guy who had like a tough relationship with his mom, because throughout his life his mom would be like talking to trees on the backyard, and she would have like names for them and all that kind of stuff. And so damn, like I don't remember exactly what happened, but she passes away and he doesn't get the chance to like spend like those last days with her or something like that. And then a letter arrives at his place, and he realizes that that his mother had like a few kids, and she lost them, and she kind of like buried them on the backyard with like the trees. So the trees had the names of the kids. So like her whole life she was talking to the trees, as if she was talking to like her kids and all that kind of stuff. So when I was hearing the story at the table we were at, it was like, this crazy person talking to trees, and the whole time I was like, wait a minute, in the Bible they talk to trees too, and no one thinks that that's weird. So how did we get from this book that is a key influence in society, in which people talk to the sky, people talk to like burning trees, people talk to like stone and all these things, and then if you do any of those in real life, you're fucked,
Man,
It's
a good point. It's a fucking good point.
I wonder. First, first the burning tree thing. Doesn't that sound like they just wanted to make the story more interesting?
Like some supernatural.
Like they were like, oh, he's talking to a tree. Yeah, he's talking to a tree, but it's burning.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe it was the
yeah,
publisher
yeah.
again. Like, hey, this story needs a little more What if the tree was burning?
And you could talk to him.
But that makes no sense. It makes
And
sense if we write it.
It's not burning at the same time.
Oh shit. I don't know. It's really, when you analyze things like this, it's amazing. But I wonder if it has to do with science. What you brought, like when people were not as scientifically knowledgeable, then they couldn't explain as many things. So they could say like, yeah, I could talk to a tree, and I guess you couldn't prove that wasn't true or something. And maybe now, since we can prove things that quote unquote are possible versus impossible, which that line keeps blurring and changing sides anyways. I think it has more to do with that than anything. Like I think like trees don't talk, right? A scientist can tell you that. Okay, well, if scientists can tell me that, then I shouldn't. But back then you probably could find like 10 or 15 other people in the marketplace that also spoke with trees or rocks or whatever, and so
Yeah.
you were kind of validated, maybe. Or maybe rocks spoke back then also. That's an interesting notion to believe, right? Like maybe we were more in tune with nature. Maybe it's something more subliminal. When they say speak to rocks, maybe it's feeling the nature or something.
Fuck.
That's a point too.
Fuck, Edward, I'm so sorry. I got so distracted. Now I was looking outside. You know, there was like a guy passing down the street with a dog, and suddenly from like all directions, so many dogs came and tried to like jump on each other. like 4 or 5 of them. Like, what the fuck is going on? And like, I literally the last 2 minutes, I was like just like boom, zooming out of the window. Like, and I didn't hear anything that you said, man. I have to go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't pay attention. Can you? We can just
Don't worry. We can
just move on, you know, because like I'm gonna listen to it again. Yeah, for the people who listen, like, yeah, my attention span is sometimes, you know, very, very, like, you know, like a little like shiny ball syndrome. Like, you know, you focus on something and then like something else is there and you're like, oh, like, oh my god. But like the scene with the dogs now, that's really cool. I love dogs.
Yeah.
I love dogs, man.
You know, and kind of like to speak on, I feel like to some degree, science is like, it's like the religion now, you know, that once upon a time we were looking up at like the priests of religion to tell us what like the truth was or where the boundary was, and now what we do is that we look at science for kind of like those answers. So I wonder how much of, you know, us not talking to burning trees anymore is essentially like science being like, no, that's not a thing anymore. That's not how we operate. You know, you cannot listen to trees. Although, you know, I wonder if we're kind of missing the point with like thinking that the tree is talking, as opposed to thinking that you know, that people are just looking at this tree and just like pulling information from nature, as opposed to, you know, the tree actually speaking English or whatever people spoke during those
Okay,
stories.
I had just a really weird thought. What if, you know, like the bush or tree was burning and actually like a person was standing behind like in a store. And just like maybe like, you know, like somebody was like a huge con artist and just like and tricking the other person, and he was like, fuck, man, I really like I talked it. He answered, man. He answered in proper English, man, with proper grammar.
He even corrected my grammar.
Yeah, but
that's definitely
some tricks, right?
possible.
Yeah, because like even nowadays people get like easily tricked, you know. And we have like so much knowledge about the world, and man, that's very interesting. Even though we have a lot of knowledge of the world and how everything works, I mean, compared to what we have, like, you know, a couple hundred years ago, 1,000 years ago, because like if you look at the knowledge that we have, then it's still nothing compared to what's out there, right? But, you know, comparison to what was in the past. Even though we have so much knowledge at our fingertips, we still have problems, man, to identify what's real, what's not real. And one example is, for example, like, you know, when something happens in the sky and all the shit happens, what's very, very like interesting is that people jump usually to the least plausible conclusion there is there. Instead of being like going through some facts, they usually, like, some people jump like directly fucking aliens or whatever, you know, like, you know, like some supernatural stuff, instead of going like, you know, why I don't understand why people jump to the least plausible conclusion instead of like first eliminating everything that would be plausible and working your way towards that. But like people just like, oh no, this time it really is something, you know, supernatural and, you know, fucking crazy and, you know, terrestrial and whatever. So I don't know, like the information age and ever, even though it's maybe it's even easier now to trick people because like so much information is out there, and it's harder to actually know what's right, what's real and what's wrong.
So
you know, go ahead, Edward.
no, I was thinking like, yeah, it's curious to think these persons that many of them never seen, many of them, all of them, most of them, I don't know, it depends, never seen an alien, right, really, or an UFO, but they have seen a bunch of other things that could apply, but they still go like, no, it's probably an UFO first, and maybe they're listening to someone that they believe in saying that there's UFOs and don't believe the government, stuff like that, conspiracy theories. But why does that hold more weight than the information that's out there? And then I have to wonder, like, does it have to do with emotion, like appealing to the emotional side, the primal side of the persons, being like, yes, there's things out there, the government's trying to fool you, and it's really, really curious.
I kind of feel like, and I feel like the more I learn from the world and all that, the more I'm convinced that even though we are all like in this planet, everyone is in a planet of their own. Like,
Yeah.
since you see the world through essentially like your experiences or the things that you focus in, I feel like, two people could see the same event, and one would think, this was for sure 100% a UFO, and the other person, maybe it didn't even face them, maybe they were just like, oh, that must have been just as much in my camera or something, and that's where it ends for like that person. And I wonder, how could we really know, like, where the boundary between like what actually happened and what didn't happen is? Because if people could have such like profoundly different opinions of the exact same event from the same viewpoint and everything, I think it definitely like puts into question what is possible and what is like least likely possible. Because also, like, I feel like when you think about it, you're if we are our brains, or the person that's having this conversation now, it's like in the brain can't see outside, the brain has no clue what the heck is going on
Right.
outside, so the brain needs to rely on all these senses to tell him, or to like provide information that then it needs to decipher. And so who knows, maybe the information, we just all like pull in different information, so we're all literally seeing two different things. So maybe one person's seeing that actually like a UFO, and the other one is actually seeing like as much on the camera that they can clean off and everything, and it plays into that reality like normal.
Yeah. It's such a really good point that you just mentioned. But not even like with the UFO thing. Even if you scale it down to let's say a car accident, and the multiple witnesses, like each one of them will tell you like a different kind of like, like, oh no, he drove out, like he didn't look, like to the right when he drove to the left, whatever, and the other guy was like, he was too fast, and so like they point out different, like even when like 3-4 witnesses at one car accident, they will point out different, they will tell it from a different angle, right? And that's in
Exactly.
a small scale thing, right? And then when it scaled up to alien, whatever, or like a huge thing, then you can imagine what like kind of like different interpretations happen there. And the thing that you said with the brain, that's one thing that actually blows my mind every time I think about it. That the brain is, man, the brain is like totally like, how to call it, like basically in a box, like head, right? And so it's like in total darkness the whole fucking time, and it needs these sensors of like eyes and ears and like touching or whatever to like to sense information. So like what I think is like what you said with the getting different informations. I think we all, the information is the information, right? If you throw a rock down, it's a throwing a rock down, but like the interpretation of the information, that's the difference. Like how the circuits in our brain work, how the receptors, the sensors, how fine-tuned you are. When you have better eyes, you're gonna perceive more. If you have better ears, you're gonna hear better, right? Like you're gonna hear more things out of a situation than others. And then this whole knowledge gets like, like jumped together. Like, the eyes, the taste, the smell, the hearing, and all these senses come together and try to make sense of the world at the same time, and getting these multiple sensors and calculating it, right, to one picture or one actually to like, the brain is basically like this, absorbing information, be like, this is going outside of my skull, this is going on. And it's like you
Oh, I
know,
see. Yeah.
and it's very interesting because like the brain has to rely on the video cameras and the sense, like you know, like in a safe, like in a panic room basically, like you know, you just have to look outside and you're not sure because you see the world only for like this limited sensors of like your video cameras and microphones, but you're not really able to perceive everything. So it's very fucking fascinating, man, to me that the brain, that the reality that we see is basically just calculated and made up. And what fascinates me the most is that we kind of agreed, like the most people agree on the same reality, even though like each of one is like
Yeah.
individual. We see the same things, and that's one thing that I'm like, fuck, man, because each brain is in a dark spot, and that like everyone sees the same thing and agrees like, okay, this is green and this is yellow and this is a car. And yeah, I don't know, man, it's
But then, but then who knows if like how much of the same thing we actually see?
good
Because
question.
I've always wondered with color, you know, we can definitely agree. Hey, this tone is blue and this tone is red, but the actual look of blue and red we will never be able to agree on because I can never know what red and blue look like to you, you know. And
Okay.
then there's people who are like blind to one of those colors, so literally that color looks like another color to them. So
So you,
you know, like how do you? It's I wonder how much of the consensus is us being like, ah, sure, yeah, yeah, that's what I call red, you
Eh,
know,
yeah,
and then we just kind of
that's a
go
good
for it.
point. It's a good point.
you you know what I say? I say that we have the question, what's your favorite color, right? And I say we all like the same color. We all like as humans, we all like the exact same color. We just see them differently. So we sometimes say blue, red, yellow. But what is that color that we like as our favorite is the exact same thing. It's just we see it differently. Like that's how I solve that riddle, because it is true, right? Like we cannot know what you're looking as red might be my blue, and if you like more red than blue, maybe it's exactly the same thing. It's just our brains are reflecting that differently, right? And and
Yeah.
and actually, I wanted to say that the panic room metaphor, I think, is really really cool, because it represents the fact that we're actually not looking a lot of it, right? Like we're just processing all this information and making it like really really focused, like funnel vision,
Mm.
funnel tunnel vision.
Tunnel
Oh,
vision.
funnel is also good. And I and and I want to bring this to drawing. Like there's this string, there's this thing in drawing that's called like symbol drawing, and it's like kind of the mistake that most beginners make. Like if you say draw an eye, you make like a circle with a dot inside, and that's not really what an eye looks like. It's like the oversimplification of our mind to what an eye is, and for beginners a lot of the time it's really, that's like kind of the first hurdle to overcome. Like don't write out of symbols. Like a hand is not like two lines and then like some wiggly fingers. No, like if you look at hand, it's a bunch of like subtleties, right? Shadows, lines, stuff like that. And then it's amazing, like how the mind can just take all this information out and be like, well, that looks like a hand, and it is a hand. Everybody can recognize that as a hand, but it doesn't look anything like a real world hand, you know.
Yeah, it's with the symbolic. Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Like it's very interesting that you know, like even though it's not a perfect representation, people like, yeah, this is a hand. You know, like that we can actually. It's in. We don't need a lot of information to know what it is. So it's
Hmm.
fascinating, man. It's fascinating to be a human being. It's really fascinating.
Also, like another thing I wanted to bring about, like I wonder if what we call like using 100% of our brain and stuff like that is actually just opening more of that focus, you
Hmm.
know, instead of
Hmm.
having our brain remove so much information from what we see and we experience. It's like, okay, no, like learn to take in more of that information and observe, because that's kind of the notion I get with people who are like really good at drawing. like they just see more in the same place. We could look at the exact same thing, but they see more things, you know, and then they can put them into paper or whatever.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is really like a misnomer in the sense that the brain is already like receiving all the information, but the brain is already operating at 100%, but our focus isn't,
Mm.
and it's exactly that, you know, as you're learning how to draw, and like for example, like you're drawing like a table or like a base or something like that, and you start paying attention to like how the light is playing into how the vase looks, and then how the shape curls around, and how the table in which the vase is also playing a role and reflecting and all that. And those are things that have always been there. They didn't just suddenly appear, but now you started paying attention.
I like that what you said, because like the you know, the 10% thing. I mean, that's an old myth, right? That we only use 10% of the brain, because the brain is active the whole time, just not all the parts equally strong. You know, like it depends on what you're doing. You know, if you're doing a balancing thing, then the sense of balance is higher active, and you know, like the body movements control. If you focus on, I don't know, on drawing, then the fine motoric of your brain is like more active, whatever, you know. And but I like what you said, that the brain is like active 100% the whole time, but our focus is not 100% all the time. And that's really like, you know, I like that one a lot, because that's all about like that's everything you need, right? If you are able to focus like 100%, then man, you can absorb information like fucking crazy in this particular field. But I think
Yeah, and I think
I
yeah,
just
keep
want to
going,
say, like,
sorry.
you know, but I think the other problem is like with like, if you're able to focus 100% the whole time, it just takes more resources, because it's like exhausting, you know, to focus on one time. And then it makes sense that, you know, that you are more like, you know, like in a passive state, you know, or like let's say, no, not a passive state, like minimum capacity. Like, you know, that's how like most,
Battery saver.
yeah, that's
Battery
exactly, that's how
saver.
most people work, you know, walk through life, like like battery saver mode, minimum capacity.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I like to think of the brain as, you know, like task manager on your computer.
Yeah.
That if you like open up task manager, it's like, hey, this is all the programs that you're running. You have I don't know, like Word open and YouTube open and Netflix open, and they're taking this much percentage of your like processing power. And so I wonder then, you know, kind of going from your idea, if also what's going on is that we put too much focus on things that don't serve us. So then, out of the rest of the focus that we do have to actually utilize, we don't have enough to actually do or focus on the things that actually do interest us. You know?
I have this the same topic I had, you know, like with, this is one of my favorite topics. This is one of my favorite topics because are you guys familiar with Michelangelo? Michelangelo?
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's see.
I was gonna make a Ninja Turtle joke. But yeah, keep going.
And you know the
Yeah, more or less.
statue of David, the teammate,
Yes.
right? And like you're gonna love this one. I call it the Michelangelo approach for life. Okay, so you know that that the statue of David is regarded like one of the most beautiful statues ever. You know, and there's this quote that when, or like this they asked him when he made the statue. So the story goes like this. You know, he walked through a city, and then he was looking for some stone, and then he found in a corner somewhere a huge stone, like, you know, like a piece of marble, like a huge piece of marble. And he was like, you know, like, and it was like kind of like, you know, covered in leaf and green and whatever. And he was like, this is the one, I need this at my atelier. And so he organized to get that stone into his, like, in his workshop. And then he started, you know, like chipping away until he finished the statue of David. And I think he worked for like 4 years on that project. And then people asked him, you know, like, how were you able to create this statue? And he was like, it was easy. I removed everything that was unnecessary. and that's what I say. Like, that's what you have to do with your own fucking life. If you want to have a beautiful life, then that's why I say, like, it's the Michelangelo approach, man. And remove everything that's fucking unnecessary. Same with the task manager, right? Close all the fucking windows. Deinstall all the softwares you don't need anymore. Like, throw everything away you don't need anymore. Like, and I'm living this principle now since couple 2-3 years, maybe 4, something like that, where I started back home throwing away everything. Like, literally back home, even the things that you have in your home are kind of taking up not just space in your place, also space in your head, because you're like, you have more things to worry about.
Yeah.
And I remember 5 years ago, when I lived together with my ex-girlfriend and I went through a depression, I didn't know what to do with my fucking life. At one point it was like, what, fuck this, I'm just gonna go and clean the cellar. And I was like, and I saw all these things that I collected over like the past 25 years or whatever, how long. And I was like, what, fuck this whole shit, man. I'm gonna throw everything away I don't need. And I started like packing and removing things and throwing away. I throw so many DVD boxes. I kept the DVDs and put it like in a small, like a box things where you can put like OCDs in it. But I throw away all the boxes, man. I gave away my games, my Xbox, my all my school books, man. Everything I fucking threw away. Like, all the years of schooling I threw away. The only thing that I kept was the the how do you call it, the graduation part. When you get the
the graduation,
the
Diploma?
report card.
Oh,
That's the only thing that I kept from the schooling part, and it's like in a small map, and that's everything that's left from fucking schooling. I have literally nothing in my home that's left from school. No notebooks, no textbooks, nothing, because it's in the fucking past, like, it's gone. And by doing this, I'm throwing everything away. Like, also giving away my car, selling that shit. I removed so many things out of my life that it created so much space and emptiness, that after doing that I was like, oh, what I'm gonna do now? And I suddenly had so much more time at my hand, because I didn't, then I noticed all these things that I had in my space, they were actually taking small amounts of time away from me. A little bit here and there, like playing the games a little bit there, reading a book a little bit here, whatever. And by removing all the things, I suddenly got this time back, and then I was like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do with my life now. And then I was a little more depressed, but then I decided, what, I'm gonna go full in martial arts. And so basically narrowing down to 2-3 things, because multi-passionist, we talked about this in the first episode. I cannot do one thing. I narrowed it down to like 2-3 things that I'm really interested in, which is speaking, photography, and martial arts, and that's what I'm doing the last couple of years. And my life has fucking improved ridiculously by removing everything that's unnecessary. Still working on it as a process in work, but man, Michelangelo approach: remove everything that's unnecessary.
Yeah, and what I like about that Michelangelo approach is that it's almost like looking at it backwards, as opposed to looking at the huge like stone marble and being like, fuck, like, how do I make a statue of this dude from this? It's it's looking at the other way around and saying, hey, there's a statue of this dude in here.
Right.
Let me get all this other like dust out of it, away from it, and then I'll have the statue. And I feel like it just makes it more more approachable task than how do I pick this stone in such a way that I don't mess it up, or that I don't do this, or that this other thing doesn't go wrong and all that, versus just thinking, hey, the dude's already in there, I just need to get him out, and then that's it. No, almost like no pressure. And to add to that idea of getting rid of a bunch of your stuff, just a few years ago, I was under a lot of pressure, because I was worried that I was going to lose my job, and I had all these things that would have needed to be paid for, and I would have been able to afford them if I would have lost my job, or at least like that's where I thought I was. Um, and just so much turmoil. And then one day I was like, fuck this, and I just like pretty much like threw everything away. And I had the initial goal of just having 2 bags, and I ended up with three. But just some time later, I just like removed the rest of the excess and ended up with two. But as soon as I did it, I just felt like I was suddenly like so nimble, like I could just go do whatever I wanted, essentially, or go wherever I needed to go. And from then on, I a few months later, my lease ended, and I essentially like didn't rent again, so I was living on Airbnbs or staying at friends' places and all that, and things just started to work out, and I feel like a lot of that was similar to what happened to you, where when you just free up the space, um, things just kind of happen for you, where because now you're kind of just focused on the things that are actually useful for you.
Ah.
And and the other thing about that, and I feel like this is like a bit of like a more stranger idea. There's all these schools of thought that say that the world is really like a reflection of you and all these
Mhm.
things. And I think there's definitely something when you have a house, or like my apartment, then and you get rid of all the stuff that you suddenly don't need, and you walk into that like empty apartment that only has the stuff that you actually are going to use, or that you actually need, and you can feel it. Like you can feel like something about you is way lighter. Like somehow
Definitely.
you were carrying all the furniture that was in your house. Like somehow that weight was on your shoulders, and you lifted it off. So I wonder if cleaning your house, or removing all these things from your house or your apartment or whatever is a way for you to also clear things away from your head, to go away from your mind, through doing it in a physical way. It's almost like some kind of like, it's almost like a physical prayer. You're and by taking things out of the house, you're taking things out of your mind that are not working for you.
Mm.
But
I get continually amazed of how easy it is to get things into your place. Like I've been also cleaning out, and I don't have that I don't have that many things. But even though I have more than I expected, now like every
yeah,
now and then I open something, poop, and there's things there. I'm like, oh my, like how does this happen? It's something, maybe it's human condition to get these things. It's also human condition to get rid of them eventually. And I super agree with what Raf said about as soon as you let something go, especially like something maybe expensive or big, like a sofa or a TV or whatever, you can feel the load of your back. So you can, it's kind of weird. Like maybe it's because these things occupy our visual space so constantly, and then it isn't like, so it creates mental space just from the new space created. But
yeah, and man, on the idea of like how you can suddenly like have all these things. The first time, after I moved to the United States, my second year there, I moved to an apartment that was literally like 1 block away. We just had to cross the street. And my mom was like, "Hey, you want me to fly over and help you out? Do you want me to fly over and help you out?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't have many things. I'll be fine." And it's just like on the next block. And so she eventually ended up coming, and a cousin of mine that lived close by ended up coming, and it took us 5 hours to haul everything from one side, from across the street, because when we started opening the closets and everything, there was so much shit. And I was like, shit, like where the fuck did all these things come from? Like I remember buying them at some point, or like getting them at some point, but then they just vanished, and now I have to like carry them over to this second place. Like fuck. And had they not helped me, had they even though I kept saying no, had they not helped me, I don't know that I would have been able to finish, because it took 5 hours of very um
Mm.
like logical, or strategic work. We had someone like packing things, and then the other people were like constantly taking things, so there was no downtime. and still, it took us 5 hours to go across the damn street. And yeah, I forgot the other part, but that I was gonna say, but yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing is that, I remember seeing this kind of like documentary in which some of the newer cities that they're building, they are actually making less streets. They're making less space for cars, because what we figured out is that if you have 20 lanes on the highway, people are gonna find enough cars to back up 20 lanes in a highway. So if you give people the space to put shit in, they're gonna find shit to put in those
Ah,
spaces.
interesting. Interesting.
Even in that big of a scale, it still happens. So
Right.
imagine on a smaller scale. Wow, that
Right.
is
So
amazing.
what they're saying is, let's less space for cars and more space for people to
And
move
walk.
around freely. So people so some of the ideas are just moving all the car lanes underground, so people can just move, or like above ground, and they don't have to like be worrying about like crossing the street and all these, so people can just like get places. And then also maybe leaving like the ground level for public transportation, so for making it easy for people on foot to get around quicker. And then everyone who's gonna have a car, they can just get around underground or something like that. And they have also, like, it's like both people have their own space to do their thing and move around.
Man, that's so cool. Before I forget it, man, I have to go back like 10 minutes when you were talking about I had the realization when you were talking about emptying your space thing, and you said like by doing that, um, and trusting, things started coming in your life, right? And then I suddenly had this realization, man, of like, and I don't know why I never thought about this before. By removing unnecessary things from your life, you create space that actually new things can come in. And I was like, that was like my realization a couple of minutes ago. I was like, that makes sense. That
Mm.
makes sense. Like, so when you remove everything, you suddenly have space that actually new things come in. But if it's blocked, if it's blocked with all shit, then nothing can come in. And then you're also holding yourself back from a really, like, a potential. You blocking the potential in your own life by this old shit
Yeah.
that you're covering. So that's one thing. This realization a couple of minutes ago was like, that makes sense. That suddenly like our lives improved once we started like actually making space for improvement and for new things coming in. So that's think a nice how to call it
Yeah,
idea realization.
s- space is finite, right? I guess that's like the whole crux of this. Like space is not infinite. We not in our houses, maybe not in our brains either. So we have to like make that space for other things to come in. I've heard, in many like self development or like productivity things, that the idea of priority
Right,
priorities.
prioritization, yeah.
Prioritization. Yeah.
Yeah, that longer version. and and yeah, and it just boils down to that, like, put some things do you want to do first, and then if you can, not if you can, then delete everything else and do those things that you put first. It's this idea
Mm.
that we have things that are most important, kind of important, and not that important, and we shouldn't. We should just have the most important things, because actually, if you could, if you shift your mind a little bit, you could fill all your time with the most important things. Then why should you spend any time doing non-important things, right? Like, that's kind of a view. And what's important, right? We have to define it ourselves, because a lot of people
Yeah.
say work is the most important, right? And so you cannot work all the time. Come on. It's like relaxation and all those things are important as well, or even more important than work in many cases, in many moments. So that's where things get a little bit complicated. What is important? You have to decide.
Uh,
Nothing is like specific.
Y- and even the idea of prioritization, it's almost like a backwards idea, because what you're saying is, hey, I have this, because if you have a priority, that's the thing that you want to focus on. But how could you really have more than one priority at the same time,
right.
so like having priorities, plural, that's the word that now I have issue issue with. For having more than one priorities defeats the point of having a priority to begin with. So why just not focus on the thing that like you're saying, just focus on the things that seem really interesting to you or that actually seem important to you, and do those instead.
Mm.
I think I think
That's where
I
it is.
think yeah, I think a lot of the trap that a lot of people fall in is that they and you mentioned it, that other people tell them, hey, work is the most important thing that you can do. So people find ways in which they're busy all the time doing work, but they're not really doing anything that's, you know, they're not really doing anything that's meaningful for them. So when something that's meaningful for them comes, they're like, oh no, I'm busy because I'm doing this other thing. So they've crowded themselves in all these activities that aren't, again, just working for them because, quote unquote, they are what you should be focusing on: making money, working out, all these things.
Mm. Comes down again to value systems and what you think is prioritization in your life and why you're doing it. Because you know how this world is very very strange, and most people do things because of social pressure and not because of their own initial value systems and what they actually like to do. And if they do it more like for external reasons, so it's like yeah. I'm not sure. Like it depends also on the person, right? Everybody's different, and some people prioritize work because they love the struggle, they love the maybe also the feeling of significance, like in the company, because that's
Yeah.
like probably a huge point. Because like in the company you're somebody, outside of the company you're maybe nobody, and so some people get like this whole huge fulfillment of being like very important from this clockwork work, and it boils down again to like what you see as important and prioritizing what you want in your life and where you want to go. So it's all questions. It's very very fucking individual.
Yeah, definitely. Because there are some people who would definitely like find what they do for work like extremely interesting for them, and then for sure for those people, go at it and focus on that as much as you can focus
Mm.
on that.
Fuck man.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is value systems at the end of the day. It's just we have different ones.
Mm.
Yeah, one person puts works at major value, so they spend their time there. Whether it's like the right value or not, it's also like not up for debate. It's just relative completely, or it's up for debate. I guess it's the way to say that.
Yeah, you're right. But for work, man, the only thing I can say is for work that, yeah, if you do, because it's a huge amount of time out of our lives. So if you do something, and it makes sense that you need something to do, otherwise, what would you do, like on this planet, all these years that you have? If you have nothing to do, then your whole existence is kind of meaningless, and being alive is a paradox on itself. So the best thing you can do is like find something that we can like basically keep ourselves busy, like keep ourselves busy till the day we die. And so that's what I love to say, man. The only thing I'm doing with my life is like I'm biding my time, like like that's why I'm traveling, doing all this shit. I'm just biding my time till I have to go. And I want to do like if I'm waiting for the exit, I want to have like at least like when I look back, I want to have like a fun wait, like an amazing
Yeah.
wait, an amazing adventure during the time, and not just like a monotone thing, and. But that's why I say like like if you work and you really decide to do like 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and spend 1/3 of your life doing this thing, then just make sure that something that's fulfilling you, something that you see value in it, something that like you feel like this is the right thing to do, and everything else, man, that's a waste of fucking time, man. If you do it for money or
Yeah.
something else, then
Yeah,
it's a
for sure.
fucking waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when you do find something that does interest you, pay attention to when that suddenly doesn't interest you
Right.
anymore, or when that
The
doesn't work
change.
for you anymore, and then go for something else. Because I feel like a lot of people fall in the trap that they're like, oh, I really like this thing, and then 5 years later they just fucking hate it, but they can't, the part of themselves that hates it cannot speak loud enough for almost like the rest of the person to
Uh,
to respond. The other day I was watching someone playing Oblivion. The
yeah,
game from the
fucking love
same
it. Elder
kind of like
Scrolls.
series as the Elder Scrolls. So and the dude is like, man, I cannot play this game. I feel like I enjoy playing Skyrim way more. And then he said, but I know that I like this game more. And so it was like, like what I got from that was like, the younger version of him was like, shit, I love this game when it came out, and then Skyrim came out and it was more interesting for him, but he's still trying to go back and trying to like piece together the part of him that used to like that game that's maybe like long gone, that maybe that game is no longer working for him, but he's like still like fighting it, and he was having a rough time, because that's an old game already. So I wonder like how much of that we also do, where we, because we said it at some point that, hey, I like this, we almost like tied ourselves down and then forgot to ever like reevaluate if we still find it
That's
enjoyable.
like, I just have to say something to that. That's a fucking amazing point, cause what I know here out of that story is like, and definitely some people fall trapped to it, and I think I did in the past too. Instead of moving on, letting go of the old, and constructing a new experience and like a novel experience, the people go back because of nostalgia, and go back and try to reconstruct and recreate a past situation feeling, like because like in the past it was fucking amazing, blah blah, and they think when they set up the environment, similar like that, they can reconstruct it and like can have the same experience like back in the day of this amazingness, and like, wow, this is so cool, instead of being like, what, this is the past, man, it was an amazing experience, I fucking
Yeah.
loved it, but now for my who I am today, because you evolve, right, you keep on moving forward and you're not the same person anymore, so like your standards also rise. It's just like, man, I loved it in the past, but now I cannot play this anymore. And for example, I have these games where like, I love to play in the past, and now when I look at the graphics, man, I'm like, do you know the game Onimusha?
Of course.
Man, so I've
Yeah.
downloaded Onimusha for the laptop, right? They did and I installed it and I started playing, and man, I fucking loved that game when it came out. I loved it. I played 1, 2, and 3, like all the parts, right? And I thought like, yeah, man, I want to replay this game again. And so it was like 2-3 months ago. I installed it and I started playing for like 30 seconds. It was like, you know what? I'm not gonna fuck up my past memories. I was like, I'm gonna leave it in the past, man. The other games, man, you're like, I'm gonna leave it in the past, man. I was nice. It's like going back to ex-girlfriend, but there, it's not the fucking same anymore, man. You change, like, and like, so, yeah, that, like, again, with the game thing, and I loved it in the past, but now. And you have to be honest with yourself. And I could have sat there and be like, you know what, I'm gonna force myself through the game. And I might have these moments of like, yeah, this was cool and this was cool, but I might not live up to my, expectations of the past thing. And instead of going through forcing myself to this fucking game, like, and trying to force an experience that was already gone and it's not gonna be anymore, just let it go, man. Let it be a nice memory and move on to the next one. Just move on.
Yeah, I think it's funny the guy Rafa mentioned, because he's playing Oblivion. He thinks he likes Skyrim more, but like there's some kind of innate fear of change. That's kind of what I perceive, that he can't even like go and play Skyrim for a little bit and because what's the worst that can happen? Okay, actually I do enjoy Oblivion more, and then you go back and that's it, right? But like there's something stronger tying him down to that memory of that game. Maybe he's afraid he doesn't like any of them, and then he doesn't have anything to play, because I think I've been there myself.
Yeah.
that it's like, well, if I change but the other option is also not good, doesn't feel like this void that I'm feeling right now, then what's next, you know? Because then I don't have any more options. So maybe if I just stay on this, you know, like just chipping away at this like good enough, then you know I don't have to find out if there's actually nothing waiting for me on the other side. So it's that's kind of what I got from that notion. Because if it's a game, just play the other one, enjoy it until you stop enjoying it. But then what's next? That's the scary part.
The what's next part. That's actually a good metaphor for real life. How some people, and I think I was in the, it's for sure the same, you know, like in the past, for sure the same, where like the moment of like, I'm gonna finish now, like, you know, like when I did like high school evening high school, or like, you know, my apprenticeship, like, what's gonna be next? Okay, what's gonna be next? This. And there I have to admit, society did a really fucking good job in laying down what's next for kids. So you don't have to think too much, you know, like, you know, kindergarten, primary school, the other schools that follow, high school, university, and it's always like, what's after primary school? Yeah, this school, and what's after that? Yeah, high school, and what's after that? University. So you don't really have to think about the next step because it's so late in front of you, and that's why so many people, you know, like university is like the last thing that you do, like it's the last boss that you have to beat. For most, like for some people who then decide to go to university. And then they're like, when they finish university, they're around 25-ish, right? And then it's up to them to come up with the next thing. And what I know for example, a girl back home, I really like her. And she's like fucking stuck in university. I think she's working on her third or fourth bachelor. And she's like over fucking 10 years, you know, like 12 years already in university. She's doing like, you know, like law, economics, psychology, and doing all these things, man. She's like 33, something like that now. And she's studying since over 10, 12 years, just doing one thing after another. And I'm like, man, you don't want to move on. Like you're so stuck in this whole thing.
And to be fair, I think there are people that do enjoy like being in school a long time, but then you know, to your point, you know, there's definitely something scary about, you know, oh shit, you know, the paved road sort of ends here, and from here on I need to go on the wilderness and figure it out on my own. And you know, there's so many options, and so many other options look like shit. Like what do you do, you know, how do you manage? So yeah, and you know, even to tie it, you know, to extend the video game metaphor even more, you know, that guy is stuck in the Elder Scrolls series. He's like, right. Oh, you know, if I don't like Oblivion and I don't like Skyrim, you know, I'm fucked because the game after Skyrim doesn't exist yet, and you can't really, you know, if you don't like Oblivion, you might have an even harder time going to even the games before Oblivion. But then, you know, there's thousands of games out there that could be games that you would really enjoy. But if you're stuck in that series, you know, you have two options, as opposed to having, you know, hundreds or thousands or more options that would be infinitely more interesting to you.
Yeah, fucking amazing. And just to bring one, like again, like the video game metaphor, for example, you can move like, you know, like linear, for example, instead of being like, you know, like going from let's say you remove yourself from Skyrim or Elder Scrolls series, and you stay in the role play gaming genre. Then you can say, you know what, let's move linear. There are a lot of role play games in that series, right? And then you're like stuck into one genre. You can do that, right? At least you're moving. Or the other option is be moving lateral and moving from genre to genre, and let's say, you know what, let's play now ego shooters, or let's play strategy games, or let's do like something else.
Racing.
So like, you know, like there's always the decision you have to make. Am I gonna move linear? Am I gonna move lateral? Or I'm just gonna stay at one point? And staying at one point, that's the most fucking dangerous part, because if you're not moving, you usually decreasing, you know, somewhere. You know, like you falling backwards. Like, you know, selective.
Yeah, and I really like that idea because I feel like essentially what you're saying is say, hey, if there's too many options, then you can take a smaller step. Just take a step, just move, because that's how you're gonna find the things anyway, as opposed to being paralyzed. So I really like that idea.
Life is experiment, man. Life is an experiment.
I think it's been an hour, so how about we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so too, man. It was like a nice episode, man. It was nice. A little bit chilled. I felt chill today. And
you feel chill except for the dogs having
and the driller.
a gun battle outside your house. That's what I imagine. I imagine Michael Jackson's Beat It, but with dogs.
That was amazing, man. You should have seen it, man. Like, I think everybody would get distracted. It was in the middle of the street. The guy with the bicycle just with the dog at this leash, and they're like da 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 from all directions. So it's like a lot of dogs. And like, what the fuck, man?
What I pictured was like the dude is going on the bicycle and then suddenly he stops and dogs like rappel down from the sky and the trees and all that.
Like ninjas.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh fuck! You know, like yesterday I went. Just a quick story. Yesterday I went I met this Chinese girl, you know, and we went. So my friend has 2 dogs. And I was like, you know what? Let's go. Let's take the walks for a dog, and like a bigger and a smaller one. And I gave her the smaller one to walk, and we walked and talked for like over an hour. Like we had a really nice time. And then at one point, it was like, yeah, come, I'm gonna how to call it, bring you home, basically. And then we walked, and the smaller dog was like, because we walked such a long time, he was at one point like, no, I'm not gonna move any. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I cannot walk with you home. He's not gonna move anymore. And she's like, you serious? Like, I'm like, try it. And she tries to pull him. It's like, either either we move back or we're gonna not move at all. And he just like stopped walking, and she's like, okay, and I guess in that case, like, goodbye, you know. And we said goodbye, and then as soon as he walked away, he was like turned around. I didn't even start walking. He was like and pulling me like, yeah, we're gonna go back now. I don't. I'm done with this shit. Okay. So like, man, dogs, I fucking love them, man. And the other dog is like huge, and she's like a huge dog and 9 months old, and the other one is almost 2 years, and he's like kind of the same. And the big one, full of energy, and wants to jump around, do all crazy things. So it's like a very, like, you know how to call it, like. The other one is chill, the other one is crazy. It's very interesting having them both on the leash, because the other one stops and the other one pulls. It's like, you know, like trying to pull you apart, man. Dogs are fucking, I love them, man. I love them. Okay, there was a side dog story. How people like actually, like, you know, like didn't expect that at the end.
The Wiggly Dog story, of course.
Okay.
That was
the Ninja and Wiggly Duck story.
Yeah. So, again, thank you for this fun time, man. Again, I love talking with you guys. And for the people who are listening, don't forget to tell your friends and family about this.
Tell your wife to subscribe.
Tell your wife to subscribe. If you
that bell button.
if you
take it for a nice dinner. I'm married in Canada.
And make sure that if you die, that on your gravestone was written, I died in peace because I listened to Officially Casually till the end.
Officially Casually.
Till the end.
And I married the notification button.
I did subscribe to them before I died, so just make sure you have that.
Yeah, this is pass it on to your kids. Okay, guys.
Disgusting.
Okay, guys, love you, and see you next week.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Transmission overdrive. I see it's endless.